The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest structure ever built by any known species. It floated in the space between three star systems, a massive sphere of metal and glass that could hold 10,000 beings from across the galaxy. Today, representatives from 12 spacefaring civilizations had gathered for what they thought would be a routine meeting about trade routes and border disputes. High Counselor Mira-san sat at the center of the chamber on a raised platform. She was old, even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her gray skin was wrinkled and her 4 eyes had grown dim over the centuries, but her mind remained sharp. She had guided the council through wars, plagues, and disasters. She had seen empires rise and fall. Very little surprised her anymore. But when Ambassador Zethrol of the Vorn Dominion rose to speak, she felt a chill run through her ancient body. Zethrol was tall and muscular, with dark red scales covering his body. The Vorn were a warrior species, proud and aggressive. They had conquered 6 worlds in the past century and showed no signs of stopping. The Council tolerated them because they were useful in maintaining order along the outer rim of known space. The Vorn Dominion has identified a world rich in resources, Zethrol announced, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. We intend to claim it for our empire. The native species will be given the choice to surrender or be destroyed. This was not unusual. The Vorn made such announcements regularly. Several delegates looked bored and began checking their communication devices. But Mira-san noticed something in Zethrol's tone, a hint of excitement that made her uneasy. "Which world have you selected?" she asked. Zethrol smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The 3rd planet orbiting the star you call Sol. The natives call it Earth." The chamber went silent. Every delegate stopped what they were doing and turned to stare at the Vorn ambassador. Mira-san felt her hearts begin to beat faster. "Earth," she repeated slowly. "You wish to invade Earth?" "We do not wish to invade it. We will invade it. Our fleet departs in 3 days." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Delegates leaned toward each other, whispering in dozens of languages. Mira-san raised one of her 4 hands for silence. "Ambassador Zethrol, I must advise you to reconsider this action." Zethrol's smile faded. "The Vorn do not take advice from the Council. We inform you of our intentions as a courtesy, nothing more." "Then let me inform you of something," Mira-san said. "Earth has been under observation by the Council for 80 of their years. It is classified as a restricted world. No species is permitted to make contact with its inhabitants." "Restricted?" Zethrol laughed. "Why? They have no faster-than-light travel. They have no energy weapons. They have not even established colonies on the other planets in their own system. By every measure, they are primitives." "They are not primitives," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Chirax, the delegate from the Kethri collective, rose from his seat. He was an insectoid being, tall and thin, with a hard shell covering his body and large compound eyes that reflected the light. The Kethri were scientists and explorers, not warriors. They rarely spoke at council meetings. 53 years ago, Chirax continued, a Kethri scout ship crashed on Earth. The pilot survived the impact. He was captured by the humans and held for 3 of their days before he managed to escape. "And?" Zethrol asked impatiently. "What happened to him?" Chirax's wings twitched, a sign of discomfort among his species. When he returned home, he refused to speak of his experience. For 20 years, he said nothing. Then, shortly before his death, he finally told us what had happened. The chamber was completely silent now. Even Zethrol seemed interested. "The humans did not torture him," Chirax said. "They did not threaten him. They asked him questions, thousands of questions. They wanted to know everything about him, about his ship, about his species, about the galaxy. They studied his technology. They analyzed his biology. They learned his language in 2 days. Chirax paused and looked directly at Zethral. When our pilot finally escaped, he realized something. The humans had not been holding him prisoner. They had been holding him back. They were not ready to reveal themselves to the galaxy yet. They were still preparing. Preparing for what? Zethral demanded. For us, Chirax answered. For all of us. The pilot said something I have never forgotten. He said the humans were not afraid of him. They were not afraid of anything. They looked at him the way a predator looks at prey it has not yet decided to hunt. Zethral threw back his head and laughed. The sound was harsh and loud in the quiet chamber. This is why Earth is restricted? Because one pilot got scared by some questions? The Kethri are cowards, everyone knows this. The Vorn are not afraid of creatures who cannot even leave their own planet. Mira-san leaned forward. Ambassador, I have lived for 600 years. I have seen many species, many wars, many conflicts, and I have learned to recognize danger in all its forms. Earth is dangerous. The humans are dangerous, not because of what they have, but because of what they are. And what are they? Zethral asked mockingly. They are survivors, Mira-san said. Their planet has tried to kill them many times. Ice ages, plagues, disasters of every kind, and they survived all of it. They did not just survive. They conquered their world. They bent it to their will. They fight each other constantly, always have, and yet they continue to grow stronger. They are the most adaptable species we have ever observed. Zethral waved his hand dismissively. Adaptable or not, they cannot adapt to plasma cannons and orbital bombardment. They have no defense against our technology. That we know of, Chirax added quietly. The decision is made, Zethral declared. The Vorn fleet will depart for Earth in 3 days. When we return, we will bring proof that the Council's fears were foolish. Earth will belong to the Dominion. He turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. His guards followed him, their heavy footsteps echoing off the walls. Mira-san sat in silence for a long moment after he left. Then she turned to one of her aides. Prepare observation probes. Send them to the Sol system. I want to see everything that happens. You believe the Vorn will fail? The aide asked. Mira-san looked toward the door where Zethral had departed. I believe the Vorn have no idea what they are about to face, and I believe the galaxy is about to learn something important about the species called humanity. She closed her 4 eyes and remembered something from the old records, something a human leader had once said. The words had been captured by a surveillance probe and translated by council linguists. At the time, they had seemed like empty boasting. Now, they seemed like a warning. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender. The humans had said those words while fighting each other. Mira-san wondered what they would say now that they faced an enemy from the stars. She suspected the Vorn were about to find out. Commander Kyle Bennett was drinking his 3rd cup of coffee when the alarm went off. It was just past 3 in the morning at Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado, and he had been working a quiet night shift, monitoring satellites and tracking space debris. He expected to go home at dawn, kiss his wife Laura, and sleep until noon. The alarm changed everything. Kyle stared at his screen, certain there must be a mistake. 17 objects had appeared in Earth's orbit, each one larger than any structure humans had ever built in space. They had not come from any direction. They had simply appeared, as if they had materialized out of nothing. Tell me this is a glitch, he said to his colleague, a young lieutenant named Amy Chen. Amy's face was pale. It's not a glitch, sir. Every system is confirming it. Radar, infrared, visual. Those objects are real. Kyle picked up the phone and called his commanding officer. Then he called the Pentagon. Within an hour, every military installation on Earth was on high alert. The objects were ships. They were alien ships, and they were not here to say hello. The Vorn broadcast their message at dawn, timing it so that most of the planet would be awake to hear it. They spoke in English, though their pronunciation was strange and mechanical. They had learned the language from decades of intercepted radio and television signals. "People of Earth," the message said, "we are the Vorn Dominion. Your planet has been selected for incorporation into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. If you do not surrender, we will destroy your cities one by one until you comply. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is your only warning." The message repeated in every major language on Earth. Then it stopped, and the alien ships went silent. Kyle watched the news coverage from the base command center. He expected to see panic. He expected to see chaos. He had seen movies about alien invasions, and they always showed the same thing. Crowds screaming, people trampling each other, civilization collapsing. That was not what happened. The President of the United States addressed the nation within 2 hours of the message. Her voice was calm and steady. She said that humanity had always known this day might come. She said that plans had been prepared. She said that Earth would not surrender. Similar speeches came from leaders around the world. The Prime Minister of Britain, the President of Russia, the leaders of China and India and Brazil, and dozens of other nations. They all said the same thing in different words. We will not give up. But the most surprising thing was what happened behind the scenes. Kyle received orders that would have been unthinkable just 12 hours earlier. Russia was sharing its missile defense data with the United States. China was opening its satellite network to NATO. India and Pakistan, countries that had been on the edge of war for decades, were establishing joint command centers. Old enemies were becoming allies in the span of hours. General Patricia Vance arrived at the base just before noon. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. She had been appointed to lead Earth's Unified Defense Force, a position that had not existed until that morning. "Commander Bennett," she said as she shook Kyle's hand, "I've read your file. You're one of our best orbital analysts. I need you to tell me everything you've learned about those ships." Kyle led her to his station and showed her the data. "They're big, ma'am. The largest one is almost 2 kilometers long. We're picking up massive energy signatures, nothing like anything we've ever seen. Their technology is far beyond ours." "Can we hurt them?" Kyle hesitated. "Honestly, I don't know. Our weapons are designed to fight each other. We've never planned for something like this." Patricia nodded slowly. "Then we'll have to learn fast." She turned and looked at the screens showing the alien ships hanging in orbit. "Do you have family, Commander?" "A wife, ma'am. Laura. She's helping coordinate civilian evacuations in Denver." "Good. We need people like her, too." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "I have a daughter. She's 17. When I told her what was happening, you know what she said?" Kyle shook his head. "She said, 'Mom, you're going to kick their asses, right?' Just like that. No fear, no panic, just complete confidence that we would find a way to win." Patricia smiled, but there was something fierce in her eyes. "That's what the aliens don't understand about us. They think we're primitive because we haven't spread to other planets yet. They don't realize that we've been fighting for survival since the first humans stood upright on the African plains. We've fought ice ages and plagues and famines. We've fought each other in wars that killed millions. And we're still here." She turned back to Kyle. "I want you on my command staff, Commander. We have 72 hours to figure out how to fight a war we never imagined. Can you do that?" Kyle thought about Laura, about the life they had built together, about the future they had planned. All of it was at risk now. All of it could be destroyed in an instant by the ships hanging above their world. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I can do that." The first 24 hours were chaos, but it was organized chaos. Military planners from every nation worked together. sharing information and resources that had been closely guarded secrets just days before. Scientists analyzed every scrap of data they could gather about the alien ships. Engineers began modifying weapons systems, trying to find anything that might be effective. And in a classified facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, a group of scientists worked on something that had been kept secret for almost 40 years. Dr. Nathan Cole was the head of the project. He was a small man with messy gray hair and thick glasses, and he had spent his entire career studying something that officially did not exist: alien technology recovered from a crashed ship in 1987. The ship had belonged to the Kethri, though humans had not known that at the time. It had crashed in a remote area of Nevada, and the government had recovered it before anyone else could find it. For decades, scientists had studied its technology, trying to understand how it worked. They had not been able to build their own faster-than-light engines or energy weapons. The technology was too advanced, too alien. But they had learned one thing that was about to become very important. They had learned how to detect the energy signature of alien ships. Nathan called General Vance on a secure line. "General, we've been tracking the alien ships since they arrived. We know their energy patterns, we know their shield frequencies, and I think we've found a weakness." Patricia leaned forward. "Tell me everything." As Nathan began to explain, the clock continued to count down. Humanity had less than 48 hours left. But for the first time since the alien ships appeared, the people of Earth had something they had almost lost. They had hope. Fleet Commander Drovak stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue planet below. It was a beautiful world, he had to admit. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling across the surface. It would make a fine addition to the Vorn Dominion. The humans had not surrendered. He had not expected them to, not really. Primitive species rarely understood their situation until it was too late. They always believed they could fight, that they could win against superior technology. They were always wrong. Drovak had conquered 3 worlds before this one. He knew how these things worked. First, you demonstrated your power. You destroyed something important, something the natives cared about. Then you waited for them to realize they were helpless. Then they surrendered. It was simple. It was efficient. It always worked. "Commander," his tactical officer said, "the deadline has passed. The humans have not responded to our demands." Drovak nodded. "Then we proceed as planned. Select a major population center and destroy it. Something large enough to send a message." The tactical officer studied his screens. "There is a city called Houston on the southern continent. It has a population of several million and appears to be a center for their primitive space program." "Perfect. Destroying their space facilities will show them how foolish their resistance is. Prepare the bombardment vessel." One of the 17 Vorn ships broke formation and began to descend toward Earth. It was a massive vessel, bristling with weapons, designed specifically for planetary assault. Its shields could deflect any weapon the humans possessed. Its cannons could reduce a city to ashes in minutes. Or so Drovak believed. In a hidden facility beneath the Gulf of Mexico, Lieutenant Maria Santos watched the alien ship descend on her radar screen. She was young, only 28, but she had been chosen for this assignment because of her skill and her nerve. What she was about to do had never been done before. There was no training for it, no manual to follow. She would have to trust her instincts. "All stations report ready," her communications officer announced. Maria looked at the men and women around her. They were from 6 different countries, brought together in the past 48 hours for this single moment. Some of them were scared. All of them were determined. "Remember the plan," she said. "We only get one chance at this. We have to make it count." The alien ship continued its descent, passing through the upper atmosphere. Its shields glowed faintly as they deflected air molecules moving at hypersonic speeds. The ship's commander was probably looking at his instruments, seeing nothing but empty sky and defenseless cities below. He was wrong. For 40 years, humans had known that aliens existed. The crashed Kethri ship had proven it. And for 40 years, they had prepared for this day. They had built hidden bases. They had stockpiled weapons. They had developed technologies that officially did not exist. The most important technology was the detection system. Dr. Nathan Cole and his team had figured out how alien shields worked. They operated on a cycling frequency, switching between different energy states to conserve power. Every 4.7 seconds, there was a tiny gap, a fraction of a second when the shields were slightly weaker. A human missile traveling at maximum speed could cover a lot of distance in a fraction of a second. Maria watched the alien ship descend to the optimal altitude. Her finger hovered over the launch button. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "All stations," she said, "fire." 12,000 missiles launched simultaneously from hidden positions across Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Mexico. They came from underground silos, from disguised trucks, from platforms hidden in the shallow waters of the Gulf. They were every type of missile humanity possessed: cruise missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, ballistic missiles, even modified rockets originally designed to launch satellites. They were not individually powerful enough to threaten an alien warship, but there were 12,000 of them, all guided by computers programmed to exploit that 4.7-second weakness. On the bridge of the bombardment vessel, alarms began to scream. The Vorn commander stared at his screens in disbelief. Thousands of projectiles were rising toward his ship from every direction. His point defense systems activated automatically, energy beams flashing out to destroy the incoming threats. Hundreds of missiles were vaporized in seconds, but there were too many. They came too fast, from too many directions. And they were timed perfectly. The first wave hit the shields and exploded harmlessly. The second wave hit during the shield cycle, when the energy barrier flickered for just a moment. A dozen missiles got through, striking the ship's hull. The explosions were small by Vorn standards, but they damaged critical systems. The ship's main engine failed. Its altitude control went offline. It began to fall. More missiles kept coming. Some were destroyed, but others found their way through the gaps in the defenses. Each explosion caused more damage. The ship's commander tried to call for help, but his communications array had been destroyed. The Vorn bombardment vessel crashed into the Gulf of Mexico with an impact that registered on seismographs around the world. The water rose in a massive wave that flooded the coastline for miles. But the ship was destroyed. Its crew was dead. Maria Santos sat back in her chair and let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Around her, her team was cheering, hugging each other, some of them crying with relief. "Get me a line to General Vance," Maria said quietly. When the connection was established, she reported simply, "Target destroyed. No survivors." On the other end of the line, Patricia Vance was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Outstanding work, Lieutenant. You just made history." In orbit, Fleet Commander Drovak stared at his tactical display. The symbol representing his bombardment vessel had disappeared. In its place was only empty ocean. "That is impossible," he whispered. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. For the first time in his career, Drovak did not know what to say. Far away, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the assembled delegates watched the footage from their observation probes. They saw the missiles rise from the Earth like a swarm of angry insects. They saw the mighty Vorn warship fall from the sky. They saw the humans cheer and celebrate. High Counselor Mirasan watched in silence, her 4 eyes unblinking. Chirax, the Kethri delegate, made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I warned them," he said to no one in particular. "I told them what the humans were. They did not listen." Ambassador Zethral was notably absent from the chamber. No one had seen him since his fleet departed for Earth. On the observation screen, the humans were already moving to their next positions. They were not celebrating for long. They knew this was only the beginning. Mira-san leaned forward and spoke to her aide. "Send a message to all council members. Tell them to watch carefully. What happens next will change everything we know about war." The aide bowed and left to deliver the message. On the screen, the sun was rising over Earth. The humans had won the first battle. But there were still 16 Vorn ships in orbit, and the war was far from over. Yet something had changed. The humans had proven that the aliens could be beaten. They had proven that technology was not everything. They had proven that courage and determination and cleverness could overcome even the greatest odds. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy was beginning to understand something important about the species called humanity. They were not prey. They had never been prey. They were something else entirely. Fleet Commander Drovak paced the bridge of his flagship like a caged animal. His scales had darkened with anger, and his officers kept their distance, afraid to draw his attention. "One ship," he growled. "One ship destroyed by primitives who cannot even travel between stars. How is this possible?" No one answered. No one knew what to say. Drovak stopped pacing and stared at the blue planet below. The humans had surprised him, he would admit that. But surprise only worked once. Now he knew they had hidden weapons. Now he knew they were willing to fight. It did not matter. "We have 16 ships remaining," he said. "The humans cannot have enough missiles to threaten all of us. We will begin orbital bombardment of their military installations. We will destroy their weapons from a distance they cannot reach. When they are defenseless, we will land our ground forces and finish this." His officers nodded and began preparing the attack. Drovak felt his confidence returning. The loss of one ship was painful, but it was not a defeat. The Vorn had conquered worlds that fought back before. They had always won in the end. What Drovak did not know was that the humans had not spent the past 48 hours just preparing missiles. They had been studying. Dr. Nathan Cole had not slept since the alien ships arrived. His eyes were red and his hands shook from too much coffee, but his mind was sharp. He stood in front of a room full of military commanders and scientists from around the world, explaining what his team had discovered. "The Vorn shields cycle every 4.7 seconds, he said, pointing to a diagram on the screen. "That's how we destroyed the first ship. But we've learned more since then. The shields have different frequencies for different types of threats. They adjust automatically based on what's attacking them." General Patricia Vance leaned forward. "Can we exploit that?" "We can do better than that." Nathan changed the display. "If we hit the shields with multiple types of weapons at exactly the right intervals, we can force them to cycle faster than their systems can handle. The shields will overload and collapse completely." The room was silent for a moment. Then a Russian general spoke up. "How long would the shields be down?" "Between 30 and 45 seconds, Nathan said. "Long enough to do serious damage." The information was transmitted to military units around the world within the hour. Engineers began modifying weapons, programming computers, preparing for the next phase of the battle. The Vorn attack began at dawn over the Pacific Ocean. Their ships spread out, positioning themselves above military bases and major cities. Energy cannons powered up, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. Colonel Derek Price was flying lead in a squadron of F-35 fighters when the Vorn opened fire. He saw a beam of blue light streak down from orbit and strike a naval base in Japan. The explosion was visible from 100 miles away. "All pilots, this is Colonel Price," he said into his radio. "Remember your training. Remember what we practiced. These bastards think they're going to destroy us from up there where we can't reach them. Let's show them how wrong they are." The modified F-35s climbed higher than any fighter had ever flown before. They carried new weapons, missiles modified with the information Dr. Cole had provided. They were about to test a theory that could save humanity or prove that resistance was futile. Derek spotted a Vorn destroyer through his canopy. It was massive, hanging in the upper atmosphere like a metal mountain. Its weapons were firing continuously, striking targets on the ground. It seemed invincible. "Squadron, begin attack run," Derek ordered. "Missiles away on my mark." The fighters spread out, approaching the destroyer from multiple angles. Derek's targeting computer locked onto the alien ship. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Mark." 24 missiles launched simultaneously. They were programmed to arrive at the destroyer's shields in a specific sequence, each one calibrated to a different frequency. The first wave forced the shields to adapt. The second wave forced them to adapt again. The third wave hit while the shield systems were still trying to process the previous changes. The shields collapsed. For 37 seconds, the Vorn destroyer hung naked in the sky, its protective barrier gone. Derek did not waste a moment. "All pilots, fire everything!" Missiles and cannon fire slammed into the destroyer's hull. Without shields, the alien metal was strong but not invincible. Explosions rippled across the ship's surface. Fires broke out. Systems failed. The destroyer began to fall. Derek watched it go down, a strange mix of triumph and horror in his chest. He knew there were living beings on that ship, creatures with families and hopes and dreams. But they had come to destroy his world, to kill his people. He could not afford to feel sorry for them. "Splash 1 destroyer," he reported. "Moving to next target." The battle lasted 6 hours. The humans lost hundreds of aircraft and thousands of soldiers. But when it was over, 2 more Vorn ships had fallen from the sky, and the rest had retreated to higher orbit, out of range of Earth's modified weapons. On the Vorn flagship, Drovak received the damage reports with growing disbelief. 3 ships destroyed, 2 more damaged, hundreds of warriors dead. And the humans were not broken. They were not even close to surrendering. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "How are they adapting so quickly?" His science officer studied the data from the battle. "Their weapons have been modified, Commander. They are attacking our shields in ways we have never seen before. They learned our weaknesses and exploited them in less than a day." "That is impossible. No species adapts that fast. These ones do." Drovak slammed his fist against the command console. "Then we will adapt too. Reinforce the shield frequencies. Change the cycling patterns, make their new weapons useless." The modifications were made within hours. The Vorn were certain they had solved the problem. The humans could not possibly learn their new configurations quickly enough to matter. They were wrong. On Earth, Dr. Cole's team was already analyzing data from the battle. They tracked the changes in the Vorn shields, identified the new patterns, and calculated new attack sequences. The information was transmitted to military units within hours. This was what the Vorn could not understand. The humans did not fight as one army. They fought as thousands of armies, millions of minds, all working on the same problem. When one group discovered something, they shared it instantly with everyone else. Ideas spread across the planet at the speed of light. The Vorn were used to fighting enemies who had one strategy, one approach. They were not prepared for an enemy who changed constantly, who learned from every battle, who treated warfare as a problem to be solved rather than a contest to be won. Colonel Derek Price landed his fighter at a base in Hawaii as the sun was setting. He had lost 8 pilots in the battle, friends he had known for years. Their faces haunted him as he walked across the tarmac. A technician ran up to him with a tablet. "Sir, new orders. Your weapons are being modified tonight. Different attack patterns. The brass says the Vorn changed their shields, so we're changing our tactics." Derek looked at the young woman. She was maybe 20 years old, with grease on her face and exhaustion in her eyes. She had probably been working for days without sleep. "How do we keep doing this?" he asked. "How do we keep adapting faster than them?" The technician smiled. "Because that's what we do, sir. It's what we've always done. We figure things out. We solve problems. We survive." Derek thought about that as he walked to the briefing room. The technician was right. Humans had always been adapters. It was how they had spread across their planet, how they had survived ice ages and disasters, how they had built civilizations from nothing. The Vorn had better technology, but the humans had something else, something the Vorn could not match. They had each other. In the sky above, the remaining Vorn ships waited for their next attack. They did not know that the humans were already preparing for them. They did not know that every hour that passed made their enemy stronger. They were beginning to learn what it meant to fight humanity. And they were beginning to be afraid. The war lasted 11 days. Later, historians would argue about whether it could have ended sooner, whether different decisions might have saved more lives. But in those 11 days, humanity showed the galaxy something that would never be forgotten. After the first space battles, the Vorn changed their strategy. If they could not win from orbit, they would win on the ground. They landed troops in Central Europe, choosing a location far from the ocean where the humans had demonstrated their defensive capabilities. It was a mistake. The humans had been fighting wars on land for thousands of years. They knew every trick, every tactic, every way to turn terrain into a weapon. And unlike the Vorn, they did not fight fair. Private First Class Danny Morrison was 19 years old, from a small town in Ohio where nothing ever happened. He had joined the army because he wanted to see the world. Now he was seeing something no human had ever seen before: alien soldiers on Earth trying to conquer his planet. Danny's squad was assigned to defend a small town in Poland. There were 7 of them, armed with rifles and grenades and a deep burning anger that had nothing to do with training. The Vorn had landed 300 troops nearby. They had energy weapons, powered armor, technology that should have made them invincible. The first Vorn patrol entered the town just after midnight. There were 20 of them, moving in a tight formation, confident in their superiority. Danny and his squad were waiting. The first Vorn soldier died before he even knew he was under attack. Danny's sniper took him down from a church tower 300 meters away. The others scattered, seeking cover, their weapons firing wildly in all directions. But there was nothing to shoot at. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, hidden in buildings and basements and behind walls. They attacked from angles the Vorn never expected. They set traps that the Vorn had never encountered. They fought like ghosts. 3 of Danny's squad died in the first 5 minutes. He watched his friends fall and felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, something else, something darker. He stopped thinking about survival. He stopped thinking about tactics. He just started moving forward, firing, throwing grenades, screaming words he would not remember later. The Vorn fell back. These warriors who had conquered planets, who had never lost a ground engagement, retreated from 7 humans in a small town in Poland. Later, a captured Vorn officer was asked why his troops had run. His answer was broadcast across the galaxy by the Council observation probes. "They would not stop," the officer said. His voice was shaking, and his scales had gone pale, a sign of deep fear among his species. "We killed them, and they would not stop. They knew they were going to die, and they kept coming. They were not rational. They were not sane. How do you fight something that is not afraid to die?" The galaxy had no answer. The tide of the war turned slowly but surely. The humans captured Vorn weapons and learned to use them within hours. They reverse-engineered Vorn communication systems and began listening to enemy transmissions. They found weaknesses in Vorn tactics and exploited them ruthlessly. On the 8th day, a team of scientists in Germany figured out how to disrupt Vorn anti-gravity systems. On the 9th day, modified missiles brought down 2 more ships. On the 10th day, human forces captured a Vorn command post and obtained the codes to their entire communication network. On the 11th day, Fleet Commander Drovak looked at what remained of his fleet. 3 ships, damaged and low on supplies, surrounded by an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every battle. He had lost 12 ships. He had lost thousands of warriors. and the humans showed no sign of giving up. He gave the order to retreat. The 3 surviving Vorn ships broke orbit and fled toward the edge of the solar system, their faster-than-light drives carrying them away from the planet that had destroyed everything they thought they knew about war. Before he left, Drovak sent one final message to the Galactic Council. It was recorded by the observation probes and transmitted to every species in known space. "Classify this world," Drovak said. His voice was hollow, empty of the pride and confidence that had filled it just 11 days before. "Quarantine this system. These creatures are not to be contacted, traded with, or engaged under any circumstances. They are something we have never seen before. They are predators who learn to wear the mask of civilization. Do not make the mistake I made. Do not underestimate them. They will destroy you." The council received the message in their great chamber. High Counselor Mirasan listened to every word, then turned to her aides. "Change Earth's classification," she said. "They are no longer listed as primitives. From this day forward, they are designated as an apex threat." "What level?" an aide asked. Mirasan was quiet for a moment. "The highest level. The same classification we give to the most dangerous phenomena in the galaxy. Stars that could go supernova, black holes, gamma-ray bursts." She paused and looked at the image of Earth on the Council's display screens. "Extinction-level events." On Earth, the survivors began to rebuild. The war had cost millions of lives and destroyed cities across the planet. But the humans did not mourn for long. They were already looking up at the stars, already planning for what would come next. General Patricia Vance gave the final address of the war from the steps of the United Nations headquarters in New York. The building had been damaged in the fighting, but it still stood. Like humanity, it had survived. Billions of people watched her speech, broadcast to every screen on the planet. She spoke slowly and clearly, making sure every word was understood. 11 days ago, an enemy came to our world. They thought we were weak. They thought we were primitive. They thought we would surrender." She paused and looked out at the crowd gathered before her. They were wrong. A cheer rose from the crowd, spreading across the planet as people watched from their homes, their shelters, their hospitals. "We lost good people in this war. We lost friends and family, soldiers and civilians. We will honor them by building a better world. We will honor them by becoming stronger. We will honor them by making sure that no one ever threatens our home again." Patricia looked up at the sky. It was night in New York, and the stars were visible through the gaps in the clouds. "Let the galaxy know this. We did not ask for this fight. We did not want it. But when it came, we did not run. We did not hide. We stood our ground, and we won." Her voice grew stronger, carrying across the planet and beyond to the observation probes that transmitted her words to every corner of known space. "We are humanity. We are survivors. We have been tested by ice and fire, by plague and war, by every challenge the universe could throw at us, and we are still here." She paused one final time, letting her words sink in. "Earth is not afraid. Earth will never be afraid. And if anyone in the galaxy thinks they can take our world from us, they are welcome to try." She stepped back from the podium as the crowd erupted in cheers. In the great chamber of the Galactic Council, the assembled delegates watched in silence. They had seen many species rise and fall over the centuries. They had seen empires crumble and civilizations vanish. But they had never seen anything like this. A primitive species that should have been destroyed in hours had defeated one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They had done it with inferior technology, limited resources, and nothing but their own determination. High Counselor Mirasan turned off the display and sat in the sudden quiet. "What do we do now?" one of her aides asked. Mirasan thought about the humans, about their strange combination of violence and hope, destruction and creation. They were everything the Vorn had said: unpredictable, dangerous, impossible to control. But they were also something else, something the Vorn had not mentioned. They were magnificent. "We watch," Mira-san said finally. "We wait. And we hope that when they finally reach the stars, they remember that the galaxy did not send the Vorn." She looked toward the distant point of light that was Earth's sun. "We hope they remember that some of us were watching with wonder, not fear." The chamber fell silent, and the delegates returned to their worlds with a new understanding of the universe. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, there was a small blue planet filled with 7 billion survivors, and the galaxy would never be the same.